Um, what I'd like to maybe to work with you here is to just sort of think about how you might go about trying to write a program. I think one of the things that's not often taught to, especially to beginning programmers, is how do you work through your ideas? What's a good way of writing a piece of code when you really don't know where you're starting from? So what I like about what we have so far is that we have the structure where we validated our input. We know that we're getting mostly here that we're getting a number that's actually an integer value that's within a good range. We know that once we get to this part of the program, we have a valid value for that we can use. So that's all been taken care of. So we want to create the number of days for this. So I am pretty sure I'm going to be using a for loop. So for let's see, a day in, and I can create a range with args num. So this will give me each day up to that. So I might just say print day, and just I want to see what that looks like. So if I run my program with no arguments, it's going to use 12, and so we have to go back and we're reminded, yes, Python, like so many programming languages, starts counting at 0, and then when we use a range operator, the number that we give for the maximum value is not included. So we have a couple options here. We could either say day plus 1, so that we're actually counting the 12 days of Christmas, or we could change our range to be to go from 1 to args num plus 1, which makes a little more sense to me. I don't feel like messing with zero-based numbers. So that's how we're going to count up. So we're going to say on the first day of Christmas, on the second day of Christmas. So let's just make it say that. Let's change this to say on the something day of Christmas. And let's just, and that needs to be an F string. And let's change it to that. And let's change n to 3, just so I don't have to see so much. So that gives me some place to start. It gives me an idea of where I might want to go. And already I'm starting to think about how I wrote the the bottles of beer song, where I created a verse function. And I'm going to do that again here. So I'm going to take the beginnings of this idea and I'm going to move this into a function called verse, where I'm actually going to print the value. So the verse function is going to return a string. And it's going to return a string because I don't want it to print the string, because I want to be able to test it. And I'm going to define a verse that's going to take some sort of a day. Create a verse will be my doc string. And for right now, it's not going to print that. It's going to return this string. And that's what it's going to start off by looking like. I'm going to copy this little bar. I'm going to put that there. And I'm going to run this now, and it should print the same thing. The whole point of creating a verse function is so that I can create a test for it. So I'm going to immediately put down here an idea for what test verse could look like. I'm going to say the idea here is to test verse. And the idea is I'm going to say, even though this isn't correct, I'm going to assert that if I'm going to call verse with 1, then it should return on the 1 day of Christmas. Okay, so the idea being that even though this isn't what the first verse is, right now my function does produce this. So it's just going to stick in day into this larger string. So if I run it with 1, it's going to say on the 1 day of Christmas. And if I run it with 2, it's going to say on the 2 day of Christmas. And this is a place to start. And if I say a pytest -xv or vx, and I run it on 12, what I see is so right here I can see that I had this wrong on the blank day. I was missing the word day. And my test verse helped me to see that. So I've run this, and now I'm passing this test. It's not actually what the program's going to create, but it gives me a place to start. And this is the what I'd like you to really think about when you're writing a program is how can you write a function to do the smallest piece of work possible, and then how can you write the tests for them so that you verified that you really understand how this function works, and then we'll put this together into larger pieces. And now I can still run my program. I can run with -n3, and I can see on the 1 day of Christmas, on the 2 day of Christmas. So that's how I want to get started. And the next thing we'll figure out how to make this. We'll work incrementally to making this actually correct.